Hello, everybody, and welcome back. It is episode 2 that I'm reviewing of the Murdaugh documentary that was on Netflix. So let's go ahead and get back to it. So the second episode started back with. Hold on, let me get into my notes, y'all. It picked up all from the boating incident with Paul, Morgan, and Connor and Molly going to the Beaufort Hospital. Anthony is still at the scene and is basically not leaving the scene because of Mallory being missing, and he didn't want to leave until she was found. Okay. Also, with this is also when the parents has been called to of Mallory. It was at least around 4 a.m. when they got the call, and were probably instructed to go to the hospital. They figured they will go to the scene of the incident because, again, their daughter is missing, so there's no need for them to go to the hospital when she's probably still out there in the waters. Okay, so they spend time going towards the scene, and they meet up with Anthony and his parents, and they're just trying to get everything that is happening. They're trying to soak it all in, and meanwhile that's happening over there, we're going to revert back to the others being at the hospital. So what went down at the hospital was that while Morgan was getting assistance from the nursing staff, one of the male nurses had pulled her mother to the side and was like, "Hey, I know I'm not supposed to tell you this, but Paul is a nasty drunk, and you need to keep her away from him as fast as possible." Verbatim, that's what he said. And then as Morgan was getting her hand x-rayed because she experienced a hand injury on the boating accident, was the x-ray nurse pulling the mother over to the side again, and she was like, "Hey, you need to keep her away from him." And that's what she said. And I'm pretty sure she also said what the male nurse said, which was, "I know I'm not supposed to tell you this, but keep her away from him as much as possible." Okay. So Morgan's mom got the gist and was like, "Okay, keep my daughter away from him at all costs." Meanwhile, Officer Pritchard came to the hospital for a statement. Morgan was the first that he stopped by to get a statement, and excuse me. And that's when Morgan was like, is sinking in that a person is coming to get a statement and is starting to be investigated at this point. After he got done with her, then that's when Randolph, the grandfather, and Alex Randolph came to the hospital and immediately was telling Officer Pritchard that, "Hey, no interviews right now because he's drunker than Cooter Brown." Okay. And I thought that was alarming, but we all know, and y'all know by now, how they are operating at this point. And Connor calls his parents about the boating accident happening and where he is at. And and after he got off the phone with his parents, that's when Alex had called his parents, telling Marty, which is Connor's father, that Connor was the one driving the boat. Basically, he was saying that in a roundabout way, but his father was getting to just like, "Oh, you trying to blame my son for this incident?" But okay. So once the parents arrived, which was Connor's parents, they were stopped by the Murdaughs, and they was basically trying to, get in there, doing some word playing and playing with their head a little bit, about, "Hey, we heard that your son was the one driving the boat that led to the incident that happened," and blah blah blah. And the mother was like, "I'm just trying to get to my son, and y'all prevented me to get to my son." because they're trying to claim that they're representing the client, as well as they are the active guardian of the client, because I'm guessing that is the wordplay that they provide the staff, that hey, I am representing this client, and or this is, or I am their active guardian, so grant me the access to go into their room. And I'm like, the nerve of it all. I'm like, ooh, y'all know, in the back of my head, when Connor's mom, I'm just trying to get to my son, and they stopping me from getting to my son, I would have said, move the F out of my way so I get to my son. Okay? Because at the end, I know what y'all trying to do, and it's not happening. All right. I probably been just like that, but at the same time, like, girl, the nerve. Y'all trying to stop me to see my son, and my son is hurt, and I'm not worried about y'all trying to do all this wordplay and fool la la up in my face. It's not going like that. Okay. So that's basically what's happening there with Connor's parents. And then that's when Morgan got a knock at her window, and it was Alex, and she was telling the nurse, don't let that man in my room. Please don't let that man in my room. And in the glass, he was telling the nurse, I'm her representative, I'm the active guardian. Bro, who gives you permission? Who gave you the permission to be her active guardian? Yet alone the representative. Okay, y'all just trying to pull up a scheme that to come with the BS. Come on now. But other than that, we're gonna fast forward to, like, I'm gonna give y'all the rundown first. According to the lawyer that the Beach family had hired. So, as he explained it, on February 23rd, 2019, it was a date night with a friend. Text Anthony, hey, want to go to the Oyster Roast? Of course, there's 6 friends involved. Anthony, Mallory, Connor, Miley, Paul, and Morgan. It is 54 degrees Fahrenheit outside, which is cold, and you wouldn't dare catch no black person out there when it's cold like that. We're gonna be inside the house, okay? Inside the house. Paul stopped at a convenience store and got $50 in alcohol with his brother's ID, and it looked like it was some cigarettes too that he was getting as well, because I did see a little box sat on top by the cashier when she was grabbing something from the shelf. And Paul, he is 5'7" and 148 pounds at that time. Also, as an important factor, if it gets right, as the lawyer explained, when the clerk is scanning the barcode behind the ID, if it beeps the right beep, then they will proceed forward with the transaction. But if not, then they will kindly decline the customer that y'all are ineligible to get this liquid here, this liquid poison here, and continue on with your venture. And as he walked out of the store, because he got the goodies and stuff, by the time he got to his truck, he lifted up as in, yeah, we gonna be wasted tonight, we gonna party like a rock star, basically. So also, he knew what he was doing. According to the lawyer, he knew what he was doing because he knew it was gonna be traffic stops along the way. So that's why they went by boat. Okay. And it was asked in the first episode, so why did y'all go by boat? And Anthony was like, to be spontaneous. But in Paul's head, he was like, there's traffic stops, so we finna go by boat, basically. So they go to the river house, and this river house belongs to the Murdaughs. So this is another property that they went to before they went to the oyster roast to basically launch the boat and do the pre-party drink. According to the lawyer and to others, Paul funnels 6 natural lights down. He basically funnels it. Y'all know what I'm talking about. He basically chug those natural lights. Okay. Also, after they get done with the pre-party, they get on the boat, go to the oyster roast, and along the way he makes a call to his father. There was no answer. He makes a call to his mother, and she answers. There's a 5-minute convo, and I'm like, I wonder what that conversation was about. But anyway, it goes. Alex didn't answer, but the mom did. Short conversation, click. Okay. His blood alcohol, I don't think I'm supposed to say that word, but y'all get my drift. The drinking consumption, okay, was 3 times the limit. And the reason why they know that is because the hospital had drew his BLOOD, and which was a smart move on the hospital to do that. Also, Paul still didn't let nobody drive the boat and calls Morgan a 304. And this is after, this is fast forward. They have fun, and fast forward, they arrive. They have fun. They eat, all that stuff. It was also mentioned that people had recommended, hey, it's getting cold out here. Y'all want to hop on in one of our cars to go home because it seems a little dangerous for y'all to be going home on boat. And Paul was like, no, I got it. We can handle this. Blah blah blah. Not leaving my boat. Case closed. So they had plenty of opportunities to go back home with somebody else, with a designated driver or a driver, at least a designated driver. But Paul declined because he wanted to be his own boss, his own ringleader in his own little head. Fast forward to the arguments. So there were several arguments going on. Paul, again, wouldn't let anyone drive the boat. That was probably the main argument on the boat. And people was trying to get into his head. But again, he's already drunk. He is Timmy. He is not Paul at this point. He is Timmy. He wants to be in control, because even though it is his boat, he is not going to let anybody else tell him what to do, dictate whatever he wants to do, and let's go forward. And that's when Paul calls Morgan a 304, slaps her in front of everyone, and goes back to the steering wheel and slams on the throttle. Once he does that, that's when the boat crashes and hits the bridge. The bow goes down, right? And the back goes up, and the rocks are at the base of the bridge. About 20 different law enforcement was there. No one was questioning him about what happened or took a breathalyzer test. He just wanted his phone so he can call who? Granddaddy. Because who gonna take care of it? Granddaddy. Because what we learned from the first episode was we ain't finna call 911. We finna call who? Granddaddy. Because Granddaddy finna get it all figured out and fixed. But who? Paul. Okay? So, Mallory's parents don't know about it. The situation happened, and not even officer. There wasn't, the agents took a glimpse at the phone records of all the law enforcement, like the Department of Natural Resources, the SLED, and all the other law enforcement that was out there. There was not one phone call made to the parents. So I don't know who made the phone call to the parents, but at least at least 5 officers should have made the call to the parents about Mallory being missing, They said there, if there ain't no body, there ain't no crime. Okay, there ain't nothing to investigate, which is so unfortunate. All right, so the connections that was involved, and when I mean connections, I mean the people, because I got the breakdown on that too of the phone records that was discussed in the documentary. Okay, so Michael Brock, he was assigned the lead investigator for the first 24 hours by the Department of the Natural Resources. Anthony told Brock that Paul called that Paul KD'd, and when I mean KD'd, I mean like KI double hockey sticks ED, his girlfriend, but the recording of him saying that was not in the transcript, in the written transcript. Okay. Also, Michael Paul Thomas, known as the Department of Natural Resource agent, he got Paul out of so much trouble before then, and he was the person that was talking to the media about, giving them the whole rundown of the events and how they're trying to find Mallory each and every way possible, giving that reassurance to the public, right, that is concerned about the well-being of others that are affected, as well as the missing person, who is Mallory. And Morgan called Michael Paul Thomas Alex's B, okay? Basically Houdini, because he makes things disappear, okay? But I thought it was very comical that Morgan was like, yeah, Michael Paul Thomas, that is Alex's B, okay? He basically makes things go away, especially when it's concerning with Paul when he gets in trouble. And I was like, ooh, okay. John Marvin. Next, we have John Marvin Murdaugh, which is Alex's brother, and he is Michael Paul Thomas's BFF, and they had several phone call exchange between all of them, Alex, Paul, and John. They was like back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Not to mention, this is not in the Department of Natural Resources documents. Okay, so catch that T. And also the officer, lastly, the officer Austin Pritchard that I mentioned earlier about him doing investigating, taking statements for each person that was in the accident. He had convos with Alex. He is connected to them as well. Why and how? Because he was the one that retrieved the boat from the scene. And I'm like, wow, shady. So y'all get all the twist of it all. It really gets ugly. Oh my goodness. And so that's when the attorney of the beaches said that they hired a biomechanical engineer that basically does the crash dummy test. And what a biomechanical engineer does is they are experts in movement of the body and physics, and which they take the positions of the people in the boat and the injuries that they receive and figure out where they in relation to the damage to the boat and the injuries associated with it. So basically, all in a nutshell, they figure out who was placed in the boat based on the information that was provided to them. They provide an image of the people who was positioned in the boat, as well as the boat structure, and then the injuries that they receive, and they do a determination based on that to figure out what exactly happened and who was exactly driving the boat at the time. And y'all, as they were explaining this situation, I'm like, dang, that's who I should have been, because that should have been my profession. Because as they was explaining the incident with the boat and where everybody was in and up at, I was like, oh man, I basically just answered my own question and then because again, I had questions after the first episode, and I definitely have more questions after the second episode and the third episode. But in the grand scheme of things, a lot of my thoughts that I was getting in my head as they were explaining the story, it was being answered within the next 5 to 10 minutes. So I was like, hey, come on now. It's like I should have been a biomechanical engineer, girl, because I can literally picture things like going on in my head of what had happened. Yeah, girl, it gets deep. That'll probably be a whole nother video. But yeah, that is basically the breakdown of what the attorney for the Beach family had provided so eloquently, okay? And on top of that, he provided the connections of the people who were involved, as like who the people who were involved that was helping to conjure up this web to make it seem like this person did this person did this, and leave the root of the person up out of it. Okay. Back to my other set of notes. Now 6 hours after the crash, that's when the news had started reporting it, and law enforcement was blocking the scene of the incident, and also the diving team was set up around that area as well. Now, as Mallory's parents arrived to the scene, the law enforcement officer was explaining to them that they can't pass through and view the scene. And however, the Murdaughs, when they arrived, they was able to pass through with flying colors, no identification, no nothing. They were just, soon as the vehicle came, the officer seen them and was like, okay, y'all can go through. And I'm like, the nerve. Okay. And there's probably a really good reason why they didn't want her or anybody else to go through, because provide their own narrative on what happened, instead of telling the public of what really happened. All right. So to further move along with this, also another key highlight within this incident was her mother had mentioned that Mallory had an Apple Watch. And I'm like, and you can clearly see it on the images after they like do a little zoom effect flashback of her being at the party and stuff like that with the videos that they did have. And I was like, oh my goodness, they had an Apple Watch? What? And they couldn't ping that? And I was like, was it waterproof? Are all Apple Watches waterproof, or just some of them? That was another question that I had lingering in my head. I was like, did she have a waterproof? But I'm pretty sure she had a waterproof Apple Watch, because they do like to go in swimming all the time. So that's just another thing to think about, and another flaw that they basically just threw underneath the rug of not checking her Apple Watch, not pinging her Apple Watch. I thought that was really irritating. After I was like, man, if they could have just had life jackets on, it probably would have been a whole nother situation. But due to the fact that her mother mentioned an Apple Watch, I'm like, that can be tracked. She could have been found earlier. You know what I'm saying? Also, with the aftermath of the accident happening, Anthony couldn't sleep in his room, yet alone his bed. So he slept in the living room, and his mom slept in the living room with him too, because of the survivor's guilt and the nightmares and stuff like that. Now, fast forward to 7 days later, when her body was found on March 3rd, 2019, while the family and friends were wrapping up at the church on the Sunday morning, and Kenny Campbell, who was a part of the search team, was the one that made the phone call to 911 or the dispatcher saying that they think they found the body. Again, quick note, as I stated in my previous Murdaugh video with the March Madness thing on it, I stated before that video, and I peeped game on it as soon as he got finished sentencing. I was like, wait a minute, this day looks familiar based on my little research so far. And I look back on the date and I was like, oh my gosh, he got sentenced on the day of Mallory being found. It's more like a sigh of relief per se, because 4 years ago y'all was like, there ain't no body, there ain't no crime. And fast forward 4 years later on the same day, it's more like, you can't what's done in the dark comes in the light, and you reap what you sow. Okay, so that's what it was getting on. Those were the teas that I was getting on my end when I seen that day and him getting sentenced on that day. Okay, so yeah, just keep that in mind, y'all. After her body was found, and that's when the Beaches hired Mark Tinsley as their attorney, which provided that great breakdown that I just told y'all not too long ago. And then after that incident, or after her body had been recovered, fast forward to April 18th, 2019. So that was more like a couple weeks later, probably a month and some change later after Mallory being found. New information had came about. That's when Paul had got indicted with 3 criminal charges. A DUI with water device and life-altering results, and the minimum was a year. I'm gonna say a year in jail or a year in prison with no probation. The fine was at $10,000, and then he also had 2 counts of BUI, water device with greatly bodily injury. He got 2 counts of that, and several people had recused themselves, as far as like lawyers, judges, probably jurors, and prosecutors per se had recused themselves because of the connection the heavy connection that they have between the family. So again, conflict of interest is at an all-time high when it comes to getting justice. From that incident, they was talking about how he had his mugshot was basically him being pictured with his own shirt, button-down shirt that he had on. And from the picture that they provided, I'm like, did somebody take that on a cell phone and call it a mugshot and just gave it to the folks saying, hey, yeah, we're giving y'all what y'all want, which is him serving his time, having some type of justice behind this accident. But yeah, that was one of the questions that popped in my head. I was like, was that mugshot that y'all did with Paul, did y'all take that with a straight up cell phone camera and just hand it over saying, yeah, this is his mugshot here, okay, photo evidence, blah blah blah, okay, keep moving. So after that happened with him, with his trial around that time, then that's when the sequence of events starting to happen. The spiraling downfall, which was Paul speeding at 78 miles an hour. He had told the officer then when he got stopped that he had sped up because he saw the police. And I'm like, okay. Next incident after that was Buster getting expelled from college for plagiarism from the University of South Carolina, which spoils the dream of pursuing his father's footsteps to a certain degree, because of that is a major violation with the school is plagiarism. Also, the marriage stress between Maggie and Alex. This is where Maggie started to hire a forensic accountant to start to sort out bills and unpaid, and it was rumored that she sought out a divorce attorney, which, with all those sequence of events happening after the Bowden incident, that's when the climax happened, which was the double H side of Maggie and Paul on June 7th, 2021. from this incident, it took hours to report. Little information was known at the time because it happened late at night, and their residence is in the boonies per se. And the first thing he says when the police arrive at his house, it's a long story. My son got into a boating accident and the people are after him, but we've been brushing it off. And I'm like, why would that be the first thing you say when the police arrive? Is the boating accident? Not even knowing that there were plenty of incidents before that boating accident happened. Okay. Not even knowing that now. But the first thing you mentioned, you didn't mention the housekeeper. The housekeeper's sons could be after you because what you did to their mama. You didn't say Steven's family was coming after you because of what you did with their son. You didn't even say the people that you scammed their settlement money from is coming after you. You mentioned the most recent incident, which was the boating incident. And this is why I called him the agent of chaos. This is why I call him the agent of chaos. But your house is in no man's land. And doesn't your property, doesn't your compound have a gate, sir? That says no trespassing or private property. Basically saying no trespassing. There were no vehicle tracks, as one journalist said. There were no vehicle tracks. There were no mileage of the cars. And I know y'all got the most updated cars because y'all status. So it's just like, bro, come on now. All right. But based on the timeline, it was said that at 7 p.m., Alex took a nap. At 7:31 p.m., he woke up from the nap after having dinner earlier on. At 8:05 p.m., he texts Maggie and Paul, I'm going to check on mama and dad because the dad's health was failing and the mom had dementia. Then around 9:15 p.m., he visits Randolph and Libby, which is his parents' house. And the incident happened at the kennels. The incident happened at the kennels. It was a short drive away from the house. Also, he called his brother when the deaths were confirmed. He had no handcuffs on him. He wasn't placed in a car at all. He did mention there was a weapon beside his car when the police arrived too, but he didn't use it. And also, he was a little bit distracted when the police had asked him what was his date of birth, especially when they asked about Paul's date of birth. And because during that time, that's when they was covering the body. And then he was like, oh, y'all about to cover the body? Like, literally, he was all over the place. Okay. And then you can also tell when he was, the officer was trying to question him. There was another officer that came over and he was like, how you doing? He said, how you doing? Very quickly now. He said, how you doing? Very quickly, and went back to being in this little distress mode. And I was like, this man playing, y'all. But anyway, also the officer the first officer that arrived there, he didn't know who he was. He didn't know who Alex was until he got their names and was talking with other officers at the scene. And also, he was pacing. Like, Alex, he was pacing back and forth, which is, again, why y'all didn't handcuff that man and put him in the car so y'all can be able to, again, but his status, right? Also, there was tire tracks everywhere. So from the I believe the policemen that was out there, all the law enforcement that was out there. So it probably kind of tampered with the crime scene as well. Far as like um the injuries we have with Maggie was taken out by AR-15 Sauter rifle, which is basically a Blackout 300, which they own, by the way, and was not turned in as the weapon, right? She was also shot multiple times, the chest and the back, positioned as almost she was running away from something or someone. And then also just a little image of body, like a basic body image, and the possible whereabouts of where she was hit. I did peep game that she was hit twice in the head, and I'm like, it takes a person that is really filled in hatred to come up to you head on and take you out like that twice now. And I'm like, that ain't nothing but a heat of passion. Okay. And Alex definitely had motives of taking both of them out. That's just my opinion, but he definitely had motives to take both of them out. Okay. With Maggie, it was probably because of the marriage. She was probably seeking a way out. And with Paul, he's more like collateral damage, as well as, you just running up the bills because of your carelessness of it all. And with Paul's injuries, he was taken out by SG, okay? And they don't leave a ballistic trail, but he was taken out once in the chest and then the neck, which I call it the blow your back out type of weapon, because with the second one, it was like it went through his neck, and then as explained, it was matter everywhere to where he was unrecognizable. So I'm like, what the heck? What? And he was probably doing something to where it, he probably got tagged by the neck and it just took him out per se, you know what I'm saying? And let's see. But that weapon wasn't recovered as well. But at the same time though, in the back of my head, I'm like, these are gun experts. And I hate to say that on here. That's probably my first and last time saying it. But they are weaponry experts at this point because they have hunting dogs. Okay, they go hunting. Okay, they have plenty of them in inventory in their house. I'm like, these are people that are experts or enthusiasts of the weaponry. And you mean to tell me y'all didn't recover those things? Y'all didn't recover those things? The very things that took these individuals out? Come on now. So to follow through with that, after Alex has explained to the officers that, hey, my son been in a boating accident, they didn't think to again, the agent of chaos, aka Alex, he led the investigators to go investigate the boating, the people who were in the boating incident. So they basically went to everyone's job for questioning, then get their alibi, except for Alex. Well, they got Alex's alibi, but it's just quite odd and strange that they put he said that as a form. Yes, that could have been a motive, but it's not strong enough to where it's like it will stick, because you are the only person there at the time. They did have another housekeeper at the time, because the one that they did have before, Miss Gloria, she had already passed during that before the boating incident and the and with Maggie and Paul getting taken out. So they already had another housekeeper at the time. And I'm like, bro, he did it. I don't know what y'all looking. I mean, y'all doing y'all job and everything, but I'm like, he did it. There's nowhere else to look. He the only one up here, unless he had someone to do it. But yeah, move forward. Let's see. As one journalist said, about 15 years ago, if there was any other incident, it will quietly disappear when it comes to this family, if in their involvement. But at the same time, that's when they again segue into the housekeeper and her falling incident. And with that 911 call, Alex and Maggie, they were getting frustrated with the dispatcher because she was asking too many questions about she was doing the basic questioning as she is getting the folks being dispatched to their location, and they got agitated because she was asking too many questions, like her age. They didn't even know her age, and she's been with that, and Gloria has been with them for 20 plus years, and y'all know that woman age by now. And also, there wasn't no emotional distress over the phone call. It's more like, okay, you're bothering us, or unbothered type of personality, and no sign of distress on the call. We just need y'all to hurry up. Basically, that was the vibe that they were getting with the dispatcher. Was like, we're calling y'all because there has been an incident here, and we just need y'all to hurry up. No questions asked. Okay. And then also they show scenes of the 2015 passing of Stephen Smith, that suffered a blunt force trauma to the head and was left in the middle of the street on the Hampton County Sandy Road, rural area road. And of course, that was the ending of the second episode. And at the ending of the second episode, there was like a message that explained that the Department of Natural Resources had declined to comment and was not available to interview. And also that Michael Brock, that I mentioned before, that was working for the Department of not human resources, but natural resources, he was now working for SLED at the time. So yeah, that is the ending of the second episode. Y'all be sure to leave your comments down below on what you thought about the second episode so far. If you have watched it, what are your questions that you had lingering after watching it, or just me explaining what happened? But other than that, like, share, comment, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. And I'll see you guys in the third and last video of this review of the documentary of the Murdaugh breadcrumbs. Okay, see you then. Bye.